welcome to another edition of the Pierce the Canvas podcast. This, as always, is Pierce with another, for the most part, pretty special episode of Dynamite. Of course, this is the first appearance by CM Punk on a AEW Dynamite show, so that, of course, made it extremely special. We got a CM Punk promo, which any week you get something like that, it's a week to be happy about. But other than that, it was a pretty run-of-the-mill Dynamite. It had its ups, it had its downs, it had its exciting parts, its boring parts, it had its story progressions. So it did everything it needed to. I would say it may have wasted a bit of time here and there. We'll get into all of it. Tonight's main event is Malachi Black versus Brock Anderson, so it's Malachi's second match in AEW, and of course it's up against Brock Anderson. The whole dramatic storyline of Arn Anderson trying to talk him out of it. You can't do it, son. You better not. And Malachi Black also advising Brock against doing this. So that's kind of the story going into that. There were definitely a few good matches here. We opened up with Orange Cassidy versus Matt Hardy, which was a fun match. They were both just doing their gimmicks throughout the match. Matt Hardy agreed to not have any of the Hardy family office people with him, so it was just him and Orange Cassidy. I think for the whole match, I don't think there was any cheating on Matt's part. And so the match starts off with Cassidy doing his weak kicks, and every time Cassidy does a weak kick, Matt does a delete. And so that's going on, and the crowd is eating it up. They just love it, which I did too. It was great. Hardy puts his hands in his pockets as well, copying Orange Cassidy. But when he pulls his hands out, he reveals that he has a whole bunch of bills, throws them all over the place. I think Orange Cassidy got rid of him, got him out of the ring at one point and took a bill for himself. Just picked up one of them dollar bills, put it in his pocket. He attempts an elbow suicida. Hardy catches into a side effect. Hardy's dominating for a while after, takes the money back from Cassidy. Hardy lands a splash mountain for a near fall, which is like some over-the-head powerbomb kind of thing. Cassidy reverses a twist of fate attempt, lands a tope suicida, crossbody DDT, for a near fall. Looks like at this point Hardy really got messed up, man. He started bleeding everywhere, dude. And I was just like, dude, this is like some AEW curse, man. You can't go 3 weeks without blood. It even seems like AEW's been trying to do that, including tonight, because there's no blood anywhere else. But it kind of seems that they're trying to lighten up on the blood, because there's been so much over the past month before. So the past few weeks have been a little lighter on that. I'm sure they're going for that for this show, but it's the AEW curse. Somebody has to bleed, so Hardy got all messed up. I think it was during one of the tope suicida attempts. I think Orange Cassidy inadvertently elbowed him in the face and tore up his nose, and yeah, the guy was bleeding everywhere. It was pretty bad. But he kept on with the match, and he looked fine, really. He didn't look like he was suffering too much. So Orange knocks him from the top and lands a swanton bomb with his hands in his pockets. That was actually pretty impressive. Right after he attempts a twist of fate. Matt lands a middle rope elbow drop for a 2 count. Matt attempts a twist of fate. Orange Cassidy is actually able to reverse into his own for his near fall. So he lands both of Matt Hardy's. Well, I guess Matt Hardy doesn't do the swanton bomb, but he did a swanton bomb and a twist of fate here, Orange Cassidy. Matt dodges an orange punch attempts to lock in his new leech signature. Cassidy manages to pin him with his hands in his pockets for the win. So yeah, fun gimmick match. I guess the whole Hardy family office thing and Orange Cassidy is going on. I'm not sure if this is going to go on all the way till All Out. Is this, it's a whatever story. It's fine. 2 gimmicks having a good time. So we hear from our main event guy, Malachi Black, and he says he agrees with Arn Anderson and that Brock is way over his head. Malachi says he'll give Brock the chance to disqualify himself, to just roll out of the ring and walk away, and apologize to Malachi Black, to think about the idiocracy he was about to commit himself to. Says that he's a man of his word and that he'll take him out, his dad, Cody, Dustin, anyone associated with the Nightmare family. And our next segment is Chris Jericho addressing his future. So obviously Chris Jericho lost to MJF. Not only did he lose the 5th labor of Jericho, he tapped out. So obviously we have to kind of address, dude, you're tapping out now. We gotta figure out what your future is gonna be like. We can't just keep moving on. We have to address it. So we did here. Jericho said that everyone's been celebrating for the past week except for him. He ended the 5 labors of Jericho, but unfortunately couldn't get the job done, lost to MJF for the third time. Not only did he lose, again, as I mentioned, he tapped out. Jericho's been obsessing about it, losing sleep. It bothers him so much because, well, after all, he is Chris Jericho, and Jericho's not used to losing like this. He's always strived to stay on top, even if it meant going through light tubes, being powerbombed time and again. Says it's what he does. He failed to beat MJF, and it's been driving him crazy. Says MJF knows Jericho. We'll keep attacking him until it's over. So Jericho says it's not over yet. He's really this like obsessed guy. He has to get that win over MJF. Says he doesn't give a shit, and it really does. Just at this point, it kind of just seems desperate. That's really the way the Chris Jericho character in the storyline really feels at this point. He's just absolutely desperate. So Jericho has a proposal, calls out MJF. MJF doesn't even come out at this point. Jericho proposes a last fight at All Out on September 5th. Says he's been thinking about it long and hard. Says if he can't beat MJF, he doesn't belong in AEW anymore. He doesn't deserve to be Le Champion. Says if he loses, he'll never wrestle in AEW again. Says he's going to do full-time commentary on Rampage. Says he'll do commentary on Dynamite. I don't know how I feel about that, like every single week. So I really don't want him to retire. Not just because of that. Says MJF has to get rid of him to prove that he is better. And so MJF actually does come out at this point. He has this MJF3 Jera, what was it like? I don't know, some name making fun of Chris Jericho. Zero. And he says that it's getting embarrassing. Can't help but think to himself, just leave me alone, man. Which is like, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm like, dude, like, move on, man. Like, do we even need this match again? But I guess with the added stipulation, it's kind of interesting. And MJF, yeah, again, he's basically just asking Jericho to leave him alone. Says MJF isn't fooled like the people in Milwaukee. Says Jericho keeps coming back because he saw MJF's meteoric rise and realized in order to stay relevant, he has to get that MJF rub. Tells Jericho that after last week, he made a promise to himself that he would never wrestle Chris Jericho again. However, it's incredible to see the looks on our faces when he tells us that he tapped out Chris Jericho, but says it would just be so much better to take out Chris Jericho for good. He says that would be legendary. So he accepts the challenge, but MJF warns Jericho to really think about it because Jericho's putting his career on the line against the guy who beat him 3 times, which, like, MJF isn't even talking shit at this point. It's like, yeah, dude, like, is this a good idea? Probably not. So, yeah, so basically just warns Jericho, tells him to think about it, asks him to really make sure, and says that he's better than Jericho, and he knows it. So yes, we're getting MJF Jericho 4 at All Out. It's like, it's not even like a tiebreaker kind of thing where they have like one win against each other, each of them, and so this is the third match to break the tie. No, man, it's like MJF has 3 wins over this guy. It's 3-0. Even if Jericho wins, it's still 3-1. Like, yeah, I don't know. Jericho can't really redeem himself at this point. You could still have a good match, I guess, and this story could play itself out. I'm sure it'll be fine, but yeah, it's definitely going on a little long. What I think it is that they might be stalling because MJF has got to be in the title picture sooner or later, right? So they're probably just keeping this MJF stuff going until eventually they could somehow pencil him in for like a world title picture because he's just eluded the title picture, all this time. I suppose it's because Kenny Omega's currently carrying it. He's the heel. So it would be kind of awkward to get MJF there. So they're just having him do this Jericho stuff until it's at some point blows over. Like this story's been going on for months and months now, dude. Like a very long time. And, yeah, we'll see. I kind of hope that this pay-per-view match ends the Pinnacle Inner Circle stuff. Not only that, but I would like to see like Santana and Ortiz kind of just go on their own. I don't really even need the Inner Circle much at this point. I think everybody in the Inner Circle could pursue their own careers independently. They shouldn't have to rely on this stable at this point, other than Jake Hager. I'll leave that at that. So we hear from the Varsity Blondes. Griff Garrison says that Lucha Bros are their toughest task, but says that the Varsity Blondes, are family. Brian Pillman Jr. says they're the number one tag team in wrestling. I'm not sure if he said that or if he said that they're the number one, like, ranked. I don't think so. He probably just said they're the number one tag team in wrestling. Expressed that they'll be the ones to face the Young Bucks in the steel cage. And so, the match is Lucha Bros versus Varsity Blondes. Julia Hart is in the Varsity Blondes corner. This is, again, a tag team eliminator match. Whoever wins this match will face Jurassic Express this Friday at Rampage. Whoever wins that match will face the Young Bucks in a steel cage at All Out. And so for the match, Jurassic Express are in the crowd. The Elite do sort of the same gimmick they did last week. They come out with their chairs, set them up on the stage. Except I think the whole Elite were out there, except for Kenny, because they came out later. So the Elite are sitting at the stage to watch the match. And the match was pretty good. A little sloppy here and there. Again, Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison are still pretty green. So there was a little bit of sloppiness, maybe lack of chemistry here and there, but it was overall a fine match. We got a huge thrust kick by Pillman to Penta, and he also landed a Rana on Penta. Ray Phoenix lands a thrust kick as well as a springboard drop kick and a cutter to Brian Pillman Jr. Ringside super kick to both guys from the Lucha Bros. Ray lands a tope to both guys. Pillman catches a Ray Phoenix dive into a powerbomb. Pillman with a flying elbow to Ray for a near fall. Ray and Penta land super kicks to Pillman. Stereo thrust kicks as well. Lucha Bros landed assisted pile driver for the win, and it looked brutal. I think it was Brian Pillman Jr. who took that. He really looked like he got pile drivered, man. It's always pretty dangerous, so it looked kind of scary, but this is Lucha Bros. They're professionals. I'm sure they didn't hurt the guy, but damn. So after the match, Jurassic Express come to the ring to face their opponents, the Lucha Bros, who, again, as I mentioned, they will be wrestling this Friday for the number one contendership for the World Tag Team Championships. And so again, the Jurassic Express come to the ring to face their opponents, and the Elite are walking toward the ring, and they sneak into the ring and shove Jurassic Express into the Lucha Bros and run away. Luchasaurus and Penta, actually they didn't run away. I think they were basically trying to provoke them. And so the Young Bucks are taunting on the apron. Luchasaurus and Penta actually landed super kicks to the Young Bucks. Jungle Boy and Ray Phoenix landed topes to the Elite. And as I mentioned, the Jurassic Express and Lucha Bros will face off this Friday on Rampage, and I will be right here to review that. So stay tuned for that. Jamie Hayter with Rebel and Britt Baker as well versus Red Velvet. This match, it wasn't great. Not either person was very impressive here. There was a spot where Red Velvet did a moonsault, a standing moonsault, and just completely missed. I don't know, I think the same thing happened to Layla Hirsch recently, but that was a little more complicated because I think her opponent was supposed to roll out of the way. This wasn't like that. Red Velvet just straight up missed a standing moonsault at one point. She did, however, manage to land 2 tope suicidas, as well as a Cazador facebuster in the beginning of the match. Jamie Hayter lands a backbreaker and a huge clothesline for the win. So I guess that's her finisher. I don't know if it was either the backbreaker or the clothesline, maybe both. That was the finish for this match. And there was a post-match attack by Chris Statlander. She attempts her finish to Britt Baker. She manages to escape and run off. Next, Evil Uno addresses the tension amongst the Dark Order. Says that, at the end of the day, all units face obstacles, and he was, though, upset that nobody came to the aid of his and Stu's. Reynolds is kind of just laughing him off and says that, it's you and Stu. You guys are the reason why Ed and Paige left the group and why he's been gone. Uno says that Reynolds should stay in John Silver's shadow. I can't remember Reynolds' first name right now. I keep thinking of Ryan Reynolds, but that's the wrong guy. Says that he belongs in John Silver's shadow, but then immediately like takes it back, says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that." But Reynolds says that he's done with Uno and that he actually shouldn't be the leader. So yeah, there's some real tension going on, kind of like I guess the Team Taz stuff recently. That seems to be happening with Dark Order. Some real dissension here, and I wouldn't rule out the possibility of perhaps Bray Wyatt coming in to tighten things up here. That's just me fantasy booking. And so next up is what really was the main event of the episode, CM Punk's first appearance on AEW Dynamite. And so this has Tony Schiavone in the ring. He says he's a wrestling fan before a wrestling announcer. Says Friday night was one of the greatest moments and gets us ready for another big moment. CM Punk's music comes on and it's a huge pop. Obviously nothing even close to what we got on Friday because it's like, I don't know, a third the size crowd from then. Even though in Milwaukee tonight there wasn't an absolutely massive crowd, however many people you could fit in that building, I'm pretty sure it was sold out. So I would say there was at least like 3,000-4,000 people in that building. So it was still a pretty big pop, and they were just like loud. They weren't letting CM Punk hear anything Tony Schiavone was asking him. So Tony asks him what brought him back to the ring. CM Punk is like, "Dude, I can't hear you, man." He literally asked the crowd to quiet down. But he says, "You know what? It's Pentagon Jr., it's Ray Phoenix, it's Brian Pillman Jr., it's Jungle Boy." He says, "These are all reasons I came here, but before those names, it's Darby Allin." And he says real quick that he's going to be retiring the name The Voice of the Voiceless because that just doesn't apply here in AEW. Of course, everybody's voice is heard, whether it's the fans or the talent. Says he's watched and seen Darby Allin, and he looks at all the talent in AEW and he asks himself if he could still go. Does he still have what it takes? Can he still be best in the world? If the answer is yes, it has to start with Darby Allin, who he says would have been his favorite wrestler at 15 years old. He may not be the biggest or strongest guy, but he's got heart. If he's going to answer these questions to himself, says CM Punk, he has to prove the haters wrong and prove all his supporters and himself right. And at one point, the crowd starts doing a yes chant, and CM Punk straight up confirms Bryan Danielson's coming to AEW because he literally just says that's somebody else's shtick. You're gonna have to be a little bit more patient for that. So we all know what he's saying there. He pretty much confirmed Bryan Danielson. So that's really exciting stuff. And before CM Punk leaves, he says hi to his wife, April. So yeah, that was awesome. Really great stuff. Another promo for the CM Punk Darby Allin feud here. And I don't think we need to do anything physical. I think definitely wait until All Out to get CM Punk's first wrestling in. I don't need to see any attacks during the build up to this match. I think it's going perfectly. We just need promos every week. Darby could cut a promo next week. How many more Dynamites do we have? Oh my god. There's only one more Dynamite until All Out. So yeah, Darby could have the last word perhaps, and yeah, we'll go into the match clean. I'm really excited. So next we hear from Miro. He says he admits to being wrong and says it's tough being as powerful as him. And talks about Fuego again, says he got the easy way into the company, but he forgives him. But he does not forgive Eddie Kingston, and he says he'll find him. God will back him up because he is the Redeemer. Says his wife will love him because he's the champion. And calls out Eddie Kingston again. And that is the match for All Out, I think. Eddie Kingston versus Miro for the TNT title. And one of two six-man tag matches we got. This is Darby Allin with Sting, as well tag team with Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston versus Cesaro Bononi, Ryan Nemeth, and JD Drake. Match was whatever. Kind of felt, out of place a little bit. Kind of like the last time these Darby, John, and Eddie tag teamed. But it was whatever. It was fine, I guess. Kingston landed a Uranagi to JD Drake. JD heads to the top. Moxley just bites him in the face. Darby takes advantage, lands a destroyer from the middle rope to JD Drake, who's a huge guy, like probably 3 times the weight of Darby Allin. So that was impressive. At one point, Avalon gets involved, but Sting runs him off until Kingston and Moxley take him out and start beating the shit out of him. Like, there was just times in this match that it literally looked like Moxley and Kingston were just jumping the guys in the match, like almost like a shoot, just beating the shit out of them. It was kind of hilarious. At one point, Ryan Nemeth has a chair. Moxley and Kingston take him out. Allin lands his stunner on JD Drake, lands his coffin drop for the win. After the match, it was hilarious. We cut to the ringside, and Sting is getting a little bit in on the action, and he starts beating up Cesar Bononi. Daniel Garcia attacks Allin and runs off. And so next, it's Alex Marvez with Ty Conji. She will be in the Casino Battle Royal. I think there's a women's Casino Battle Royal for the women's title, or at least not for the title, but a contendership for the title. So she and the bunny, who comes in, disturbs the interview, asks Tay Conti to join the HFO. Tay rips the offer in half. It was like a contract she was handed. Tay just rips it in half, and the women brawl until the officials pull apart. And yeah, again, they will both be in the Battle Royal, which I'm not sure if it's at the pay-per-view. I think it will be. So, Kenny Omega, Don Callis, Brandon Cutler, and Michael Nakazawa come out for a Shivani interview. And then we actually cut to commercial. When we came back, we heard from FTR real quick. We had a video promo with them. Cash says that he's never going to be the same, with this probably disgusting scar he's going to have on his arm for the rest of his life. But says where he's from, you rub dirt on it, wrap it up, and keep going. And basically says that Proud and Powerful will get payback. And that match, I think, is happening next week, which is awesome. That I'm really, really looking forward to. So Callis, again, we're in the ring with Shivani, and he steals Shivani's mic and says that at All Out they'll take down Christian Cage once and for all. He comes out. Cage says that everyone in Milwaukee has had a cup of 2-3. I don't know. Christian Cage knows all the town references. I don't know what that is. They won't believe the BS coming out of Callis' mouth. And then I think Don Callis played the video real quick. And I saw the whole thing on YouTube, so I kind of know what's going on. If I didn't, I don't think anybody knew what, this dude they saw. It went by so fast. The context in which this is being told. Anyway, a guy named Tony Condello comes up in this video, and I believe he's one of Christian Cage's, first bookers or something like that. But Don Callis was involved in the company at the same time that Christian Cage first got there. So they're basically playing up the story that Don Callis did something to screw Christian Cage out of Winnipeg Wrestling, because this was a Winnipeg Wrestling League. And Tony Condello is basically recalling an incident from there where Don Callis got rid of Christian Cage because of some 10-year-old kid named Kenny Omega. Anyway, it took me 5 times the length that went by to explain that. It was real quick. If you go on YouTube, seriously, there's there's a 5-minute version of that video that you can see that explains it in more detail. Cage calls Callis a carny piece of shit. It's just Christian's gimmick at this point. And a piece of shit chant ensues. Kenny says that he has bad news. Says that the video we just watched proves that at 10 years old, Kenny was a better athlete than Christian at 20 years old. And since then, nothing's changed. Callis says that he used power to promote family over talent, and says that makes him like Vince McMahon and Burt Gagne. Yeah, we got our first Vince McMahon name drop on AEW as far as I remember. And then he started putting over Kenny Omega. Yeah, it's hilarious. A Vince McMahon shout out on AEW. Omega says Christian knows nothing about him. Callis asks his boys to hold his scarf in his jacket. He looked like he was about to square up with Christian. Says that Christian will find out that when he stands next to Kenny Omega, he'll always be second best. Cage gets pissed off, but gets overwhelmed real quick until Kazarian comes out for the save. Frankie Kazarian, literally all he does is come out when the Elite are attacking people. That's his whole gimmick. Moxley is pissed off. He's in the back. Says he got an offer for a match from New Japan, but he looked at the contract or whatever, and basically he didn't mention him by name, but basically said that it wasn't Tanahashi. Says it was Satoshi Kojima. of all people. Just the most random match ever. Says this crazy old man wants to step in the ring with me, but I'm gonna make sure he goes out in a blaze of glory. Moxley says that, just remember when the bell rings, I have no respect for my opponent, I'll hurt you. He says he's gonna break his esophagus so he has to eat through a straw. And bows down to Satoshi Kojima. So that's a match we'll get at some point. So we have a very pointless match. QT Marshall, as any match with QT Marshall is. QT Marshall, Aaron Solo, Camarado versus the Gun Club. Paul White's on commentary. This was a total nothing happening match. This was a total waste of time. Yeah, I didn't like this at all. Marshall just got Paul White all pissed off. I don't even know how. He was like looking at him, and then he's like, "Why are you looking at me?" And so Paul White gets up, and Austin Gunn rolls up QT Marshall for the win. So next we hear from Dan Lambert with Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. Says that he's not getting through to us with the truth. Says that AEW is a dumpster fire of a wrestling show. Says that he's blaming AEW for feeding us chicken shit when we want chicken salad. Fresh Corn, brother Ali, what's going on, man? Thanks so much for tuning in. So Moxley and Kojima's gonna be at All Out? What? Dude, oh my god, man. I didn't even take that in. Really? Because, yeah, for a TV show or something, that's fine, but at the pay-per-view? Alright. I guess. Jeez. Yeah, so Dan Lambert says that he'd stuffed the talent of AEW into a locker in high school. Says we don't want to see a Tony Hawk wannabe or a douche with his hands in his pocket. Says that our generation needs help, and he'll provide our generation with role models to look up to, and starts putting over Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. So I guess he's their manager, which, Dan Lambert could be anyone's manager and it's great, but I feel like there's somebody who could be a better fit for Dan Lambert than this random tag team, but alright, we'll take it. So, next week, Brian Cage versus Powerhouse Hobbs. Orange Cassidy versus Jack Evans. FTR versus Santana and Ortiz. JR will interview Chris Jericho. Tony Schiavone will interview MJF. That's all coming up next Wednesday. This coming Friday is Ty Conji versus The Bunny. Jurassic Express versus Lucha Bros. Kenny Omega and Brandon Cutler versus Frankie Kazarian and Christian Cage. As well, at All Out, we're going to see Pac versus El Idolo. Britt Baker versus Chris Statlander. CM Punk versus Darby Allin. MJF versus Chris Jericho. Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage. And now this is news to me, Jon Moxley versus Satoshi Kojima. So random. And so, heading into our main event. Arn Anderson is with Alex Marvez, and he says he would die for his son. Says he feels that his son would do the same for him. Clearly he would. That's what this match is. That's why this match is happening. But he kind of warns his son again, says he's going to have to pull everything he has in his heart and guts to beat Malachi Black. And so into the match, Brock Anderson versus Malachi Black. So Black's immediately dominating, lands a huge knee and starts killing Brock. Malachi starts addressing Arn on ringside, telling him to throw in the towel. And so this has Malachi distracted, creates an opening for Brock to get a few shots in. Doesn't last long. Malachi Black is quick to land a black mass for the win. And he gets a chair post-match, about to attack Brock, but Arn gets in the way of Brock. Black gets rid of the chair, and he does a black mass to Arn, and he does a black mass, and Arn gently blocks it. And so he no-sells a black mass. He no-sold it, dude. I don't care if it landed on his arm. It's like he no-sold a black mass. The 62-year-old guy. And so what does Malachi Black do? He kicks Arn Anderson in the balls, and he actually black masses him, knocks him dead. And then something that just really pissed me off, Lee Johnson comes out, and this is the first time I've ever been pissed off at how AEW went off the air. Lee Johnson came out and ran off Malachi Black, dude. What? Isn't this guy's AEW record literally like 50 and like maybe 6 or some shit? Like, do like oh no 6 and 50. My bad. Like 6 wins and literally like 50 losses. I'm like, bro, give me a break, man. Like, are you kidding me, man? Are you kidding me? And even worse, I feel like this is gonna be the pay per view match. Like, just because there's nothing else. Like, what else? Unless we just pull some match out of our ass, which we might as well at this point. Like, put him up against anybody else. I'm sorry to tell you, I think this might be the pay per view match because they didn't confirm that this match is gonna happen on Dynamite. I don't know, Ali, if you have something else, some news for me, please. Like something. I think this. The crowd had no idea who Lee Johnson was. Literally, man. Like his music came on, I was like, thinking like, who is this? I was like, is it fucking Daniel Bryan? Is he here? Is that him? Is he coming to save the Andersons? Oops, sorry about that. No, it was Lee Johnson, and Malachi Black left the ring and walked out like a bitch, dude. Like, ugh, that made me sick to my stomach. But other than that, I still like AEW, and it was a good show. I love seeing CM Punk's promo. I think the Orange Cassidy Matt Hardy match was fine. It was what it needed to be. We continue with this MJF Jericho storyline. So overall, maybe not the strongest AEW Dynamite episode, but there's a lot to look forward to. So I'm hanging on tight, and I will be back this Friday to review Rampage, and we'll be back next Wednesday, next Friday, and next Sunday for All Out. So stay tuned on Pierce the Canvas podcast for that. Thank you as always for tuning in to me for your AEW coverage. Much appreciated. If you could hit that like button and subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. It will help the channel a lot. We'll be back in a couple days, everybody. Take care. Have a good one.